bloody checks. Yeah. Oh, fucking put the music up. How you like it, Dan?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, we got it made originally.
Yeah.
A one of one.
I always feel like I put the music on too long because I like it.
It's good. Goes for a couple of minutes.
It does.
Don't need that long.
It's also really pointless us dancing like we're live streaming when it's on a podcast.
Maybe put the shirt back on.
Great intro from Shutdown.
So what's happening today, Burso?
Well, I'll take you back. Oh, I've done it again. Oh, the music's still going.
Mixed sounds. Wow.
It's just, welcome back to the Shambles Podcast.
Been no rehearsals today.
Yeah. Right, we've got Mark 46 McConnell with us. You happy with your full name? Because it's too late now.
Yeah,
if you're not.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. Known as 46, just due to his rapid time over, how far is it?
40 yards, mate. 40 yards.
Which is how much in Australian?
36.3. If you're not going to
Meters.
check it on Google.
Yeah.
I got no idea. Dude. I got no idea.
I'm actually pretty impressed. I'm going to take that as I reckon that's real. Yeah, he's also known as Shutdown because he's the best corner that we ever had at his height in Geelong Buccaneers.
Yep.
It's a really niche group there.
Yep. Story checks out.
Yep. So that's Shutdown, 4'6" because of his pace. What else do we call you?
The only reason I was quick or called Shutdown is because I was scared to tackle people. But
Yeah.
try to avoid that as much as you can, mate. If you're running down the field, can't tackle anyone down there. Stay away from those big boys.
Very elusive. You'll actually...
So is that gridiron reference?
Yeah, American football, gridiron, whatever you want to go with for all our American listeners.
Do we?
What about baseball? Do you run in baseball?
Yeah, but
That's
only
one of the
like
bases.
90 feet. Don't ask me what that is in meters.
20 feet. That's about 30 metres.
Yeah.
Do we want to go off script and tell the story
About the fingers.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
I was about to go. But this is the problem. It's like we don't have visual at the moment. But you can see my Harry Potter scars. I'll just, for all the people at home, I'll look at my fingers.
Some
that
nasty
are gross.
slashes across the
Yeah, got some mad Harry Potter scars.
hands.
Yeah, that was a bad day, that one.
Okay. Do tell.
No, well, it was pre-season training. You know, I actually didn't know Burso.
Hang on. Yeah.
Back we go.
So yeah, pre-season training, we're doing some drills, and I was defending Burso. For those that don't know, Burso's big unit, a lot bigger than me anyway. So ball comes towards us, and it was kind of like we both slap at the same time, you know, shut down. So got the job done. He didn't make the catch and heard a noise, and he took it quite well, but looked down and his fingers were kind of like a peace sign. It was like a peace sign. So if you imagine a peace sign, but both of those fingers are now at right angles. And we looked down at it, and it was, you know, we had a guy at the club who was the guru at putting fingers back in. And they're like, yeah, come and pop his fingers back in as cartilage, bone, all sorts of stuff sticking out. So kind of hard to...
Heaps of support. So like I did it and I was like, it feels like I popped them out. And then I looked down and I could see they were not
like
ideal, but I hadn't turned it over. And I was like, "Hey, McConnell, put him back in." He's like, "Nah." I'm like, "Well, you did it. You fix it." He's like, "Not my job. Go see the coach." I went to the coach and he did the same throw up thing. And he's like, "Nah, go see old Nasty," as his name. We might have him on because he's a Paralympian.
Yeah.
Old Nasty now. He went to look at him and he turned it over and he goes, "Mate, you're going to hospital." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "See that? That's your bone." And I was like, anyway, that's how we ended up becoming
The Harry
close
Potter
friends.
scars.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't shake hands.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no. Well, I couldn't because you ruined my life already. Oh, what do you got for us?
This one could be a future prototype. Maybe 3 zeros coffee in a can or something like that.
It could be. I like how you've just made something up like you just invented a product.
Mysterious product testing.
We've gone from inventing sponsors that we have now, just inventing products.
Future products that we wish for.
Yeah. Oh, it's that alternate Gatling gun that's made by Nerf that actually shoots real arrows. It's great. I love it. It's great for hunting. So anyway, since we were rudely interrupted by the future product, so anyway, we've got you on here. Your history used to be Vic Pole.
Yep.
Before that, you were reserve Army.
Reserves, yep.
Was that before or after policing?
So it was during.
During.
Yeah, so I think it would have been, I joined the Coppers in 07, did a little bit of Army Reserve stuff in probably 12 to 14, so only like 3 years.
Yep. Fair enough. So what were you doing before you joined the police?
So before I joined the job, it was very much retail, things like that. So worked
Brushes, Sanity.
Yeah.
Did you actually work at either of them?
No. I worked at Franklin's Fresh.
Oh, yeah?
Supermarket. So I did a bit of time there.
Did some time.
Yeah. Bounced around a little bit, mate, doing retail. Went to Scotland for a year, which is pretty cool. And then, came back, and it was, probably similar to a lot of dudes, like didn't have a trade, never went to uni. It's like, well, what are you going to do? So, started the process for the coppers.
Something you always wanted to do?
It wasn't, mate. But if you look at my family tree, as in both my grandparents were coppers, but it was never, or grandfathers, but it was never one of those things where I want to do it, which I guess in later life probably made it easier because, I'm sure we've all seen it where, for me, policing needs to be a job that you do. It's not who you are. And too many times guys get into that loop where it becomes their only identity and things like that. So for me, towards the end, it was probably because it was a job, it was easy to leave rather than feel like I'm about to lose a massive part of my life.
Yeah. So it wasn't like breaking out with something. It was literally just like, this is what I do for money.
Yeah.
And then I'm heading off.
Yeah, 100%.
So, I mean, that's interesting because it's different because most people we speak to about being like in the job are like, they've always wanted to do it. Like I wanted to be a copper and that sort of stuff. You literally just did it for cash because you weren't qualified or anything else.
It was never for cash. It was more like, because it's a career.
Yeah.
Like, you can't.
Stable. They'll teach you the training.
Yeah, you've got the job until something goes pear-shaped or you decide to leave.
So what was the appeal?
It was never so much about catching the crooks and things like that. Like that was cool, but it was probably more that stability. At the time, I just had a young kid, and it was like, well, what am I doing with my life? Yeah, cool. You can work in retail if you want, but
So how old were you when you had your first kid?
How old was I? 23.
Accident?
No, we don't like to refer to that.
Why? Because he's old enough to listen to it.
It was a pleasant surprise. Let's go with a pleasant surprise, mate. It was actually, it was funny. The young bloke, I was driving, me and him in the car, and he he made the mistake. He's like, "Hey, Dad, what do you think your life would have been like if you didn't have me?" And I was like, "Oh, son, let me tell you, mate. Let me tell you." So, had the first young bloke at 23, joined the coppers at 25.
So.
What was that like having?
Because like
a father at 23.
Most of like me and Al have got kids, but we just don't know about them. But like it must be different for somebody who's around for them.
It's
there goes my keynote speaking again.
At the time, mate, it was so I'd just come back from Scotland. So just come back from Scotland. Young bloke turns up kind of 12 months after that, and I think because I'd lived in Scotland, I'm only 23, but maybe like most kids at 23, I felt pretty good about. I've lived a pretty good life here. My CV's pretty awesome.
At 23,
yeah. I've lived in Scotland. I've done this and I've done that. So cool. And it's
time to hang up the boots at 23.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not. I guess until you look back at it, you're like, holy moly! Like, I mean, my eldest kid's 19 in a couple months.
Yeah,
that's him. That's me being a granddad in 4 years.
Upside, you can play sport with him.
100%. So, you trust everything happens for a reason, and I wouldn't change it. Absolutely not.
Oh, I'm not going to get you to go down that path.
No,
you're never going to say it.
But, and like you said, like you still get that opportunity to, I play baseball with my kid now. He's probably better than me at, certain things in it. And, it was cool. But there was never. And even now, I don't have that feeling of, oh, man, I missed out on this. Or
I think more what we were trying to get at is obviously being the Imposter Podcast. Were you, when you found out you were going to be a dad, were you like, nah, I have no position being a dad to someone else? You seem to have a different outlook on pretty much everything at the moment. Like joining the job, you're like, yeah, it's a job, stable. I've had a kid, I'm 23. I've been to Scotland, whatever. I'm ready to settle down.
Yeah, and mate, 100%. Like you start even and that feeling of being a dad, like
when you found out, like when she's like, "Hey, heads up, you're going to be a dad." Like, how was that?
Yeah, it rocked you. as
But
in,
were you happy? Were you just like, what have I done? Like the fact that you were like, oh, I'm 23 and I've had a good life anyway. I would have been going off.
yeah,
going water might do
mate,
it.
like to be honest, like I'd only just got back from Scotland. I'm still living with my parents. First time I moved out of home properly is when we're having a kid. Man, you're starting to make me question. maybe
It's going to become a deep session.
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't be chilled. Maybe, holy cow. But yeah, mate, I'll just roll with it, to be honest.
Did you just not have time to think about it or something? Like it sounds originally like, oh, this is my life, this is what's happening.
Yeah, 100%.
How's the adaptability on this bloke?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good, pretty hot.
That's not where I thought this was going to go. Yeah, no, it was fine. Like whatevs.
Yeah.
It's like future me will be happy with this. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And I don't know, mate. Like I guess because I hadn't had the chance to become established when I got back properly, so it was just like, all right, cool. This is happening. Let's get after it. And I haven't spoke to 23-year-old for a while, but you always think you're more mature than what you are, or you always think you're more ready than what you are.
So your son's 19 now.
He's 18, turning 19.
Yeah, so he's like 4 years off. And when you look at him, do you go, oh, he's only 4 years off having his own family?
Yeah, no.
Or do you go, mate,
just
you are not ready?
Yeah. and yeah, I guess that's the thing too. Like I probably never spoke to my parents about what they thought, but they would have been probably thinking that sort of stuff as well. Like, holy cow, this dude hasn't got a stable job. Actually,
But historically,
So look at him. He's like, hang on, we need to stop this.
retrospectively questioning everything.
My whole life has been a shambles.
But historically, I mean, if you went back to our parents' generation, that age to have kids wouldn't have been like it would be very common.
Yeah.
They got married at 19 or 20 and had a family.
Yep. Yeah, and it's I guess I'm retro in a way.
So as a 40-year-old male without any children,
40-year-old version.
I've heard that it said that you don't really become an adult until you've had children and you're like responsible for somebody far more than yourself. Do you have a perspective on that, having been a dad at 23?
Yeah, mate, I probably wouldn't agree with it. It is a responsibility, but there's people out there that haven't got kids that, like one thing, and I guess, going back to the police stuff a little bit, that used to annoy me was, single people, young people always had to work Christmas and the family's got it off, which, that's okay. But who's to say someone that hasn't got kids, just because they haven't got kids doesn't mean they don't care about Christmas or they don't have, other responsibilities and things like.
No, This is so triggering. Like in the army,
I worked
where you
every
have
Christmas always.
Yeah, exactly.
But, and again, looking back, like I never got that opportunity to be, financially set up or things like that. But I mean, from having a kid,
Didn't get a chance to date a stripper and have a torch your
cashed up
car
wagon.
or scratch your house and
Did you ever have an SS Commodore?
SS, no, I didn't.
No, you weren't missing out.
I had a VY Commodore. Is that But, it's one of those things that just because you haven't got kids doesn't mean you haven't got responsibilities. And so, no, I never look at other people, I don't know if you get it, mate, but, people, what do you mean you're 40 and you haven't got any kids? Well, mate, who's anyone to tell anyone about how they should be living their life? Or
Hey, you're 40, you live alone, you're starting a YouTube channel. Like, what is wrong with you?
yeah, like
Trying to fill in for not being a real adult yet.
I was going to say though, like
Very targeted.
even though I'm not judging, if you're in your mid-40s living with your parents, the chances of me and my old unit turning up to take care of business seem pretty high. Seem to have a lot of jobs like that.
Yeah.
But, yes.
Angry, displaced male.
Well, this will be interesting because so far there's no issues. McConnell, I mean, there's issues. He's got to go back retrospectively.
Yeah.
Reassess his life choices.
I
But
didn't have any issues walking in here.
yeah,
I want to ask, so, you said your job is what you do, not who you are. In those lines of work, that's quite a unique perspective. Did someone ever say that sort of thing to you, or do you know how you started with that perspective?
So I actually stole it, mate, from the
here we go.
Stole it from the Navy SEALs, right? So watching a doco with Navy SEALs, and they're like, doing the SF stuff isn't what they do, it's who they are. And I'm like, yeah, hey, that's cool for you guys, but this isn't, and I used to tell when I was an instructor at the academy, that's what I used to tell my recruits and things like, don't let this be who you are, because I've seen it happen too many times where it becomes a slippery slope and people's identity is completely wrapped up in that job. And, I don't want to make it sound like I just turned up to get a paycheck or anything like that.
That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make it sound like that.
Yeah.
Really trying to throw you under the bus.
Yeah. And it was never that. I cared. I was passionate. But you always have to have that life outside. Again, people become entrenched in that lifestyle where all they do is hang out with coppers and they, we'll probably cover off on it later, but once, the best analogy I've heard about leaving the job is, you're on the train and everything's going good. You get off at the station, that train keeps going and you sit there and you wave and it's over. And especially with policing, and it's an interesting way to look at it, but for me, policing was a massive part of my life for 15 years. If we flip it, my impact on Victoria Police was minimal. So that's a hard thing to get your head around. You know what I mean? Something that's massive in your life, but it's not so massive on the other side or the organisation. So you've got to wrestle with that a little bit.
Yeah, it's the other way you hear it said is like, you got your finger in the bucket of water, you take it out and it closes over.
Yeah.
It's hard to accept personally, but everyone seems to find out at a certain point how true it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing, like, I'm not bitter. I'm not angry at the old job. I love it. Like, if either of my kids said to me, oh, Dad, I'd really like to join the job, beautiful. Like, get after it. I'll encourage you. I'll help you. But, sometimes people can get a little bit, bitter and twisted and things like that. And luckily enough, I should say, for me, that was never me.
I feel like he's targeting us now.
Well, I definitely never suffered from any professional identity fusion.
Anyway, so then you went to the academy.
Yes.
Well, yeah, so you've had some retail jobs and then you become a father and then you went to the police academy.
Correct. Yes.
So how did life change and what was the evolution there?
Yeah.
Like, were you nervous at all going to the academy, or you're always like, well, I've already been to Scotland and I've had a kid, so I've already done my life at 23. This is lame for me.
Mate, it's funny. I still remember turning up on day one at the academy and, you're nervous and everything like that.
It's the first time he said nervous. He's literally had a kid already. This is the first time he's nervous.
I always, whenever you're in a group environment, and it probably comes back to that imposter syndrome, that you don't want to stand out. In a group of 40 people, you don't want to stand out.
Yeah, don't want to be exposed, yeah.
100%. I turned up with a haircut that was like borderline mohawk, like super long. And the second I walked in, I was like, oh, man, I've made a terrible mistake.
Had it crossed your mind beforehand or only as you walked in?
No, literally only as I walked in. So I get picked out of a group of 40 of us and it's like, all right, you over there, you need to get a haircut tonight. And you're like, oh, man, like so much of being the grey man. So
surely you had some sort of inkling going into the police academy with a mohawk was going to get you some attention.
It wasn't a mohawk. It was just like a long, spiky. It was too long.
Yeah.
Basically just too long. So that night I run down to Glen Waverley Shopping Centre. I'm like, can you just take it all off? So for the rest of the course.
Skinhead.
Buzz cut kind of thing.
Nice.
And I'm like, yeah. But the academy experience was good. I enjoyed it. And I guess, so I went through in 2007, ended up going back as an instructor in 13, 14.
Was there any times during the academy that you were like, oh, I might not be cut out for this job?
Yeah, mate. And I guess with the academy, that there's always going to be moments where the course itself, I mean, maybe you can, maybe you're better than me, but it's hard to go through and dominate everything. And you have that feeling sometimes of, I failed my summary offences prac, which is the first exercise you do. And it's literally like a dude throwing paper on the ground, go and talk to him. And I failed.
Yeah.
Like, how do you fail that?
Did you pull your shooter on him?
Yeah.
Did you actually?
No.
Well,
but,
stranger things have happened.
And in that sort of situation, and, you make mistakes. Like first day shooting, the first day you go live, I was the classic guy who, your hands are shaking, you're all nervous and you go bang and you're like, oh, wow, I did it. And then you turn around to turn around now, point the gun at everyone who's waiting to have a go. And you're like, oh, how good was that? And they're like, yeah, please don't point guns at people.
Yeah. It's really funny when you see people trying to be calm about a dangerous situation because they're like, if I stir this bloke up and he's already like, oh, look at me, and he's pointing his gun at me, it could go pear-shaped.
Yeah. So everyone's calm then, and then you get blasted. But 100%, mate. And, you're always – I never wanted to stand out for any reason, whether it be, being too good, not being good enough. And those times where the spotlight is on you is hard because you're like, well, everyone else has done this. Why can't I do it? So 100%, mate. And that's
– Did we work out why you couldn't do it?
The summary offences prac. I can't remember what I did. But like I said, it's literally a person dropping paper.
Yeah.
Can't be that hard. And I still messed it up. Now I'm a professional communicator. So.
That didn't affect me at all. Right. So the academy obviously blew through. Like somebody couldn't pick up paper and that was your biggest drama.
Yeah.
But you're a mad technical skills man everywhere else. Went from there to Werribee.
Yes.
Not a great place to be a lot of the time.
Werribee's flat out, mate.
Yeah.
So when did I start there? 08.
I've just lost all that Werribee listeners.
Yeah, mate, it was, and you talk about trying to fit in and things like that. Like Werribee at the time had a lot of big personalities. You walk in as the new guy, and little things happen where you're just starting to establish yourself. Things are starting to look not too bad, and then you make a new guy mistake, and you're like, oh man, like.
Breathing too heavy or any of the little things you can do as a new guy.
Exactly. And I still remember the one time where things were starting to go good and I was like, hey, this is looking all right. I'd been there for a month or two, starting to get in the groove. Then we're working a night shift and I was working with a member, we're doing whatever we're doing. And
so at this stage, is this your first night shift?
First night shift, I crashed a car. So that's probably not enough.
How did that make you feel?
Yeah.
I definitely deserve to be here.
Yeah, the spotlight was on me then, and then you kind of
I thought he glosses over these things. But no, I was all about it. You wrote a car off. Yeah, no big deal.
Well, actually, I hit a gate, and again, like we've had those moments where if it happens to someone else, you laugh.
Oh, I'm loving it.
You're enjoying it.
Perhaps you should have made policing your identity.
But for whether it's a bingle in a car, hitting a gate and things, all of a sudden the spotlight's on you. And, where it really came to a head, but we were, as a different night shift, still been there for a little while. We're cruising around, in a marked car. We see a sus vehicle and we're like, fuck, what's going on here?
Look at you getting scared about swearing.
Sorry for that. And, we roll up on it. It's in the middle of nowhere. We light it up and this car just hammers. And we're like, holy cow, well, this is it. We're in a pursuit. So I'm like to my senior member, I was like, hey, do we call it? And they're like, yep, call it. I'm like, whatever wherever, we are in pursuit of this vehicle. The blue and the red lights go on the vehicle that we're chasing. It was the station undercover car. So it was a station unmarked car that the other blokes were, and as you know, as soon as you say that P word, as soon as you say pursuit on the air,
everyone's all about it.
Chaos breaks out.
Yeah.
So it's like we got to have an incident controller and we got to do this and there has to be reports. So we're in a 12-second pursuit with an unmarked police car and it was just the boys taking the piss, and it's like all of a sudden in the station you're the guy who made the call. Remember that guy? Yeah, the guy that got in a pursuit with an unmarked police car.
Yeah, it takes a while to get past.
Yeah, 100%. And I still legit get, shivers down my spine when you think about going to the station and, you're doing a few ride-along shifts and you're starting to get into the groove, and then all of a sudden, the senior member's like, all right, mate, you take this one.
Yeah.
And that's the worst feeling.
So what was the job that you went to where you were like, this is actually me, I can do this? Or were you straight out of the academy like, yeah, whatevs, I had a kid already, I don't care?
No, 100%, mate. It was to try and think of a specific job that I went to at Werribee. I can't remember. It's more you've got to establish yourself as you establish those relationships when you're working on the van. When just
so your issues sound to be your perception of how other people view you.
100%.
At no point have you cared about the fact that people were trying to stab you or do anything else. You were just like, that's cool, no big deal. That's part of my job.
Yeah.
You're literally just feeling like an imposter amongst people at the office.
100%. Which, yeah.
It's another therapy session he's doing.
Survived Werribee, but not the hazing and the bullying of the day.
Yeah, no, it was literally people's possessions. And again, we'll talk about, the critical incident response team stuff probably later. But my greatest fear in that job was you can send me to the craziest, wildest firearms, whatever. I'm happy. I would be freaking out where it's getting into position.
Like driving to the gate.
Yeah, driving into gates is a bad one. But
you know what's interesting? Like, how we went to that thing this morning, Al? Went to this lady, the Inkling Effect. She, they did this thing where it tells you a whole bunch of different stuff about your talents or your character traits or whatever. And one of them was networking, where it was like your responsibility to other people outweighs everything else. So regardless of whether you're, you're scared, you're this, you're that, whatever else it is, it's like you are more scared of letting people down than you are about that thing.
100%.
That's interesting because everyone else is like, I felt underprepared coming out of the academy. It's like, the first job I went to, old mate did this. And I was like, can I do this and do that? And you're like, geez, I hope I park this car properly.
Yeah. And it's messed up, mate. Or like, making a wrong turn or, doing whatever. Like getting to the job is cool. In, once I'm there, take care of business. But it's those little things where people would look at you and go, what is his malfunction? Like, that stuff stressed me out, even if it wasn't happening. So
did you sort of through your career, were you ever as afraid or have as much anticipation about an offender as you did about your task or your performance on any given job?
No, because even whatever job we get called to, like let's go biggest of the big sieges, things like that. I always felt prepared because we fall back on our training. It wasn't business as usual, but I always backed us. We got better training, we got better weapons, we got better numbers. We can take care of business. But if you told me, all right, Macca, we need you to go at the back of the property and you need to hop over 2 of these fences and make sure you're in this yard, I'd be freaking out. So by the time I got there, by the time I got to deal with the scary situation, I was just relieved that I managed to find it.
Thank God the bloke came over here trying to stab me. Thought I was in the wrong backyard.
I assume I'm in the right place if this guy's trying to stab me. So it's all good.
We've found this a couple of times now where, people listening might assume you're going up against some incredibly dangerous and volatile people, like very regularly. But the commonality is that the anticipation and anxiety is actually about what role do I have to do to contribute to the team's success, as opposed to, the quite practical danger that person or offender poses.
Yeah, and again, like some of these early morning ones and things like that, I'd come in last minute. So again, I don't want to harp on it, but the imposter kind of thing. I'm now coming into a small team where they've been doing this for 3-4 days. And they're like, Macca, easy job, mate. We just need you, at the back, or we need you on the right side or the left side or whatever. And the weird thing is it never happened. But that thought process of like, oh, good Lord, what happens if I can't find the house? And you get inside your head a little bit where it's like, Macca, where are you? And you're like, still at the footy oval. Have we moved off? Like, what's going on here?
Did I miss the code word? It's like I only moved to Irene.
and like you say, for people listening, it probably doesn't make sense.
I'll be honest, I'm sitting here, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's because you're a high level operator.
This is very true.
With an extra medium t-shirt
makes
on.
Total sense to me.
Yeah.
we must have been on the
same course.
Backside a few times.
Yeah.
So, and before we move on from Werribee, as Berso was sort of alluding to before, but at what time, senior member on the van, starting to mentor some of the new trainees, even if there wasn't a moment, was there sort of a time period where you realised, actually, I know all this stuff, I know how to go and deal with jobs, I know who to ask if I don't know the answer?
Yeah, mate, it's probably weird, and it's probably something that stuck with me through my career, I guess, is I was always big on seniority and how long people had been there for. So, if people had been
So if their number was above yours, you wouldn't listen to them?
not so much.
Oh, it's an odometer, mate, not a bloody registered number.
Not so much that. It was more like if someone came in 6 months after me, well, then I've got a better idea in my head. So I'd mentor them, I'd help them. But anyone who'd been there longer than me, I always kind of looked up to them and felt a little bit, not insecure. What's that word I'm trying to think of? Like they were always above me with everything they knew.
Inferior,
that's the word. Again, professional communicator, ladies and gentlemen.
He's actually paid to teach people to communicate.
So yeah, like things like that and getting them through. And again, it's a shared experience, isn't it? And a lot of the times at Werribee, it wasn't so much the jobs. It was, riding on the van, talking to people, becoming a little bit more friendly with them. And people actually, you can kind of feel a tangible change when you start to get people's respect. And it's hard to describe it. You can't force it, but you sort of know when it happens, if that makes sense. So I don't know if that does.
It does, yeah. I mean, from there you went on to training recruits.
Yep.
Did that give you that sort of perspective as well that, actually when I communicate this to new people, I really do know my stuff and I've been to a lot of jobs to validate what they're being taught?
You went to the operations response
Went
unit
to the operations
before
response
Academy?
unit before I went to the ACAD.
Did you do GrowCon or any of those things?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. No, I was thinking about that. Yeah. So we did, those big protests. The public order response team was just starting, course one, kind of a big deal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to bring that up, but I thought
obviously.
I've been itching to get that. But when I went to the operations response unit, so again, for people that don't know, it was a new thing that came up. Basically just bringing in a whole heap of coppers, and you could go around, and it was a visible kind of a.
I think they actually brought it in for the bushfires and flooding because they needed to be able to ramp it up.
100%. And when we got there
was no fires or floods.
There was no fires or floods, but holy moly, there was a lot of money.
There were some troops.
So yeah, went to
Rainbow Serpent.
Went to Christchurch.
For the earthquakes.
Yeah, for the earthquakes. So we were there. Went to Brisbane when they had their big floods. I still remember there was a photo on Police Life of the guys flying in wasn't like a private jet, but it was a small one, like flying to Mildura and all that sort of thing. So it was good for a couple of years, and then moved on to the academy as an instructor.
At no point were you feeling like an imposter at any of these national emergencies? Was you like, no big deal, I've had a kid?
Yeah.
I wonder. Christchurch is kind of modelled off Scotland in a way.
Yeah. So
Dunedin is.
The thing that's funny is I wonder if having that happen at 23. I remember doing my stuff for resistance to interrogation and stuff with the army, and they get you to write down your biggest fears. And mine was always an unhappy marriage and unwanted pregnancy. And I was like, well. And I'm not saying that's what you've got. But I'm just thinking, if you've already had the worst thing that can happen to you, which it isn't because he's the best guy ever. I mean, he's a ranger, so we can.
Little one's grown out of it now. The older
out of the rang?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
But it's if that's happened to you already, it's well, I've already grown up and I'm an adult now.
But it's and I guess looking back, it's a big event. You know what I mean?
I know looking back it's a big event to you, but at the time you're like, whatevs.
Yeah, exactly. What do you mean I got to buy a cot?
Yeah.
But
I slept in one at college. What of it?
Yeah, and I guess Al probably touched on it a little bit. That imposter thing for me was majority always in my own head.
Yeah.
And it was always, whether it was accurate or not, it was always worrying about making the big mistake or making a mistake where everyone looked at you and it's what is your malfunction? That's not a great feeling. And
I think they call it anxiety.
Yeah, we can discuss that later if you want.
I feel like we just need to skip and go to the therapy with about anxiety.
Yeah, we can,
in case people have misdiagnosed you so far.
Yeah. So, and 100%. And
so no issues at any of the big events that were on anywhere?
So Christchurch was massive. And again, it's probably one of those.
Not the shooting, the earthquake.
The earthquake, correct. Yep. So I can't remember the exact dates, but let's go earthquake on a Monday, whispers on a Tuesday. Have you got a passport on the Wednesday? We fly out on the Thursday. So our role over there was to roll with the search and rescue teams. So that sounds sexy, but wasn't. And I think that's
There's not so much rescue; it's more search at that point.
search.
wasn't
Yeah,
it?
and all I was there was as a police presence to give permission to go into houses, go into do all that sort of thing. And I think that's, it's probably one of my things. And even coming here talking to you guys, like some of the stuff that we've done sounds sexy on paper.
Or on a Podcaster Pro.
Yeah.
If they want to give me a new one, there's a Podcaster Pro 2 out now.
Is it?
All the sponsors. Oh, speaking of sponsors, you got to make one up. Who is it?
Hey, I'm not sponsored today, mate, but I'm about to sip on this magnificent Monster Energy drink, and might I say that the Ultra Strawberry Dreams is not only refreshing, but it's actually giving me a little bit.
DC's going to be so upset he missed his chance to be a sponsor.
Going straight for the top of energy drink.
Look, I'll change my name to Kyle if Monster wants to throw us some cash.
Yeah, so I definitely don't want it to come across as like, nothing phases this dude, or, he's always casual, especially around that social kind of stuff. Like you always want to be one of the team. And yeah, that was always one of my, I guess, main things. And yeah.
Right. So you solved like 4 national emergencies and then no big deal. And then you went to the academy.
Correct. Yeah.
Was that a big deal or was that just cash? Because you're expert.
That was a big deal, mate, only because
only because it's like it wasn't, but
no,
one time.
So I went to the Army Reserves. So, joined the Army Reserves, which was really cool.
Did you end up being a real soldier or not?
No.
Just lost so many listeners.
I was just, I wore a uniform. I remember a uniform. I had webbing, I think, from the Vietnam era.
Yeah, the H harness.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And I really liked the way they went about it. So I go to the academy with that thought of, probably wrongly, I can change the world here. I can get my guys, my team. I'm going to set some standards.
Oh, good.
I'm going to do all this sort of thing. And mate, that rug was taken out pretty quick, where I get my first squad, right? So first police squad, they turn up to the first session and they're like, they were like 2 minutes late.
Oh, good. Did you smash them?
Not on my watch, mate.
Oh, I love it.
On my watch,
love
right?
it.
So it's basically an intro to what we were teaching them: firearms, offensive tactics. So I'm like, this is unacceptable. You got to be on time.
Oh, 100%.
So we get the tables, pull them all back, and
I say I made you an hour late today.
Yeah.
Guess I could. I was terrible at organising.
So move all the tables back. We can do some push-ups.
Oh, great.
We do 10 push-ups.
Love it.
Okay.
Was the entrance test 5 at the time?
Yeah.
Oh,
so that's twice.
there's going to be some trouble.
Workload.
Yeah.
100%.
So
So
they break it up, or in one set?
it was one set, mate. So, we started at 1, went through 2, 3, 4, 5. You thought I was going to stop? I ain't stopping.
And we're going to do it in French from here.
Yeah.
This is tyranny.
Yeah.
So we get to 10 push-ups, and I'm like, all right, refurb the room, and we go back to work. I get a complaint about me that we hadn't done a
warm-up?
Yeah. So we hadn't done a warm-up before I made him do 10 push-ups. And, I had sat down with the boss, and he's like, mate, where in the syllabus does it say you're supposed to be doing push-ups? And I was like, oh, man. So that kind of shattered my dreams a little bit. But
So instead of setting an example, the example was set in the negative to you.
But, yeah, you had to be smarter than that. And I got smarter towards the end. I could make things hurt.
You're like, we're going to be doing warm-ups. Today's warm-up is 10 push-ups.
No, but see, even with five push-ups, if I take you halfway down and then I have some things I need to explain, if I make those 5 push-ups last for like 65 seconds, see, switched on operator.
Yeah.
And you couldn't punish them physically if they weren't up to standard. So a lot of the times I'd bring them in and I'd be like, look, guys, this is my fault, okay, because your standards aren't up to scratch. This isn't good enough. My fault is that I haven't given you an appropriate warm-up. So we're going to go back and do the warm-up again.
Did you know who it was?
Hey?
Did you know who it was that complained?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Now Bursa has a vendetta.
Yeah, found his challenge to out him publicly.
Wait a second. Are they here now?
Yeah.
This is live.
For context, for our broad listener base, why would you want to give them some physical punishments or rewards, as they were often known?
Yeah, it's interesting as an instructor, and it's only now that I look back on it. So when you go through as a recruit through any kind of training. I assume it's the same as military, policing. You look at the guy who is your leader, who is your, like I was senior constable, you look at him like, oh man, this guy's, he's been a jerk to us, or he's been this and he's been that. But looking back on it after being on the instructor side, hindsight is, if that squad is a disgrace, that instructor's in the gun. As in, people are going to look at him and go, mate, what are we doing here? So,
mate, Cert course was 100% like that. We'd all be looking at the instructors going, how's the course going?
Yeah.
And they'd be like,
Yeah, and so when it's important as an instructor, and I still speak to some of my recruits now that I brought through and things like that, is you have to be in control. So if you are yelling 100% at the time, you lose them straight away. And with that physical kind of stuff, it was, when I look back on it, I gave a shit about my guys. I still do. Is that a swear word? Or?
No, it was just the first time you've cared about
that
something.
I've cared?
Yeah. you're a kid, 3 national disasters in.
Yeah.
So was this now who you are and not just what you do?
So, it's important when, and I guess in that situation, you want the best for them, okay? And we talk about, culture and things like that. So anytime we did not punishments, let's call them punishments and things like that.
I think it was retraining, they used to tell it.
Retraining, it was to get that standard, because bottom line is, at the time I had 33 weeks with them. They go out there and they're not prepared for it, then how am I going to be? And it's not only looking after themselves, it's looking after people that I know. So
this comes back to the same issue you've had the whole time, where you're like, you're not worried about them going and doing, like, you're worried about letting them down.
Yes.
Like, you literally, the biggest concern you've had so far is just being a letdown to people in the job.
Yeah. And
have you had like 3 other kids by this stage already?
Yeah. So this is when I started my
because you've actually got other kids.
Yeah, but it was kid number 5. We started a basketball team, so playing on Tuesdays at the Life Be In It. But like I still remember, and again, hopefully coming from a good place. So when I was doing it, my recruits would, I think it was about 12 weeks. They get sworn in. Okay, so they get sworn in and they have their little ceremony, because then they have to go do their training in the field for a couple of weeks. So they have their ceremony, and it was a higher up, police member that's given them the rah-rah speech, like, welcome to the family. You're not part of this. So I always made sure I grabbed them straight afterwards, and I was like, you need to understand, you ain't part of shit.
Okay.
Which sounds harsh, okay? But the idea is, and we've all seen it, you've been in the job 5 minutes, you think being in the job that's the worst person at a police station.
Yeah, when they think they know everything when they first get there.
The one that comes in and thinks they're a part of it, and you will be. But if you walk in there with that arrogance or that confidence, misplaced confidence, I didn't want that for my guys.
Yeah,
so
it has to be earned.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of the times is, it gets framed in a way where you think you're part of this big blue family because you've done 12 weeks at the academy. That ain't the truth, and that's not how the leading senior constable that's been on the van for 23 years is going to treat you.
Yeah.
So it was more of that reality check of just like, hey guys, you need to understand how this actually works.
Well, this is what Karis was saying, where every step of the way you've got to then show or validate that the training you've done has stuck and you can actually perform your job.
Yeah. 100%. And especially with those recruits, you don't want them going out there and fucking up, basically, and fucking up from a point of view of making an ass of themselves, and then they've got to try and clear out that reputation. So
at any point when you were running the academy, besides obviously the first time you got spoken to within day one, was there any time you were like, I'm not cut out to be an instructor, or were you just, again, this is just what I do?
You always, and it was probably a theme through most of my career, and it probably wasn't until the last, maybe with the Negotiator stuff, that I sort of got a little bit better at it, is you get there as a new guy, you look up to people, and, you start to maybe, there's a fine line between taking on board things and doing a direct imitation of someone.
Yeah.
Direct imitations don't work. So you got to take that stuff on board and, work it, massage it, I guess, to how it suits you best. So, you know, I get there as an instructor and, you know, you're trying to, you know, drop some similar gags or, you know, we had one dude who, you know, he'd wander in and he's like, all right, today team, we're going to do the best of from 2009 to 2012 and just do his own thing. And that wasn't me. And, you know, it's where the academy was different because it was so far from where I lived. You know, I was traveling an hour and 10 minutes. So you're always that guy who is on the outside. And there's guys probably still at the academy that have been there for 20 plus years as instructors, which is cool. But that wasn't me. So 100%, you walk in there and, you know, and it's childish bullshit sometimes where it's like, you know, I might just sit here and here comes, you know, old Bill who's been, hey, mate, that's my seat. I've been sitting there and you're like, sorry, mate, sorry. Again, for people listening, they're like, well, what do you mean? Like this doesn't make sense. But in policing world, it's...
Oh, mate, when you're when you're in the academy and you've got to sit at the back and then you move to the front, like just depending on how many weeks you've been in the academy, you get to sit at a different table. Yeah. And you're like, hey, what squad are you? Nah, I wouldn't have thought, lads.
Yeah.
Off you go. Off you trot down the back.
They changed a lot of stuff. Like even when I went back as an instructor, you know, people would refer to each other as in the recruits by their first names. You know, oh, your name's Matilda. Would you like to be called Tilly? Or like, no. Like for me, it was always last name. Yeah. Every single time.
And always writing it in capitals and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, writing in capitals. Don't walk on the grass. That's going to upset me. You know, and you become good at, you know, not messing with them, but just trying to instill that discipline. You know, the classic, they're too slow getting changed. So they turn up in their PT gear and you're like, all right, not quick enough. Go back down, get back in a uniform and then you're going to get changed again. And because they're recruits, they don't know. So when they come up and they're all in their uniform, you're like, all right, everyone, you know, raise your pant legs. Because someone hasn't changed their socks. Because they're like, yeah, I can get away with it. Yeah. So it's always, and to be honest, mate, you never probably feel comfortable in that environment when you got dudes in there for 24 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was tough.
But again, the job has never been your concern. It's literally just how you're seen by your peers.
Yeah, I mean,
because you don't seem to have an issue with training people how to do their stuff. You're like, I only need to get it into a certain standard. But if an LSC comes past and sees you teaching it, you're feeling he's judging you, and then that's your issue with them.
A little bit. I mean, you've got your little notebook there. We'll get to some stuff.
Well, it's just funny because by this stage and having different jobs and that sort of stuff, most people would have been like, for the first 6 months, I didn't feel like I was doing it or whatever. Whereas you've sort of, and again, it probably stems from the fact that you had a kid at a young age where you're just like, well, this is my life. This is what happens. This is what I do. I just adapt. So you obviously have a high level of adaptability, but you can also see that the whole way through here that the anxiety that you have from letting people down has been a consistent thing. Like it doesn't seem like you really have the imposter part, but you just feel like you're going to let other people down, and like you don't care about kicking doors in, you don't care about doing this, you don't care about that. Like people are pointing guns at ranges, you're like, how about you just turn it around the other way, mate? No big deal. But it's like if the sergeant walks in, sees you, and you're getting him to do push-ups, and you're like, oh, now I'm worried about it. It's it's interesting to see. So you've gone from Ost.
Do you want me to leave, or is that?
No. I mean, Al's gone. Al's had enough. He's like, I just wanted my sponsor, and now I'm gone. He's like, until 3 zeros makes a can that we can open. So you went from Ost to Cert. Obviously, not a big deal for you either.
Oh no, it was massive.
He's just got to talk it up now. You watch. He's going to be like, oh no, that was a really big deal.
This is where it all changed.
Yeah,
this is where it all changed, and I think, and it's 100% with the imposter kind of vibe to it. So when I went to Ost as the academy, I wanted to go to Cert.
So how many years in are you? Any idea? By the time you've gone to Cert, 8 years in.
Yeah, but
yet to be challenged.
But I was that guy, and I don't care what the course is, whether it's Special Operations Group, whether it's Cert, whether it's Dog Squad. There's always that genre of copper who's like, no, I'll have a crack at the next one. So yeah. So there's a course coming up in 6 weeks. Yeah, I don't know about this one, but I'll have
a needs a little bit niggly on this one.
Yeah, I'll definitely have a crack at the next one. So that was me. I was the next one. And then it was that, I guess, fear of failure or, not being good enough. And then when it eventually came around to apply for cert, and it probably didn't help with that imposter kind of vibe. Like I was pretty established as a copper. I had a reasonable amount of contacts. So as in contacts at cert, people who knew people.
Oh, right. I was like, I'd been in 17 shootouts.
Oh, no.
Contact front.
No, army boy. We're not talking about that. So, like, I wasn't on a promise, but it was like,
Oh, here we go.
no.
Had you had the tap?
Yeah.
Was that?
You'd had the tap on the shoulder, had you? Just put your application in, mate. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
Green lit.
Led enough hierarchy through the
There was-
OS shoot easy enough. He's like, come see us.
There probably was a little bit of that, as in, I knew guys in the training wing. I knew guys that had been members of specialist units. I knew, so everyone's like, put in, mate, put in. So going back to what we were saying, you go through the application process, and I was okay. I was sort of, not too bad, but then that always plays on your mind when you go into the course of like, hang on a minute. And I don't know if any of that actually happened, but it's still in your mind. You're like, well, hang on a minute, do I actually belong here?
So this is funny again. Are you now nervous about letting the people down that you know in the office?
No.
Now you're actually worried about performance.
Correct. So
For yourself though, or for letting your contacts down?
No, I didn't particularly care about the contacts at that point.
So this is the first time you haven't cared about other people?
Yeah, fuck it.
So they're vouched for you, and you.
So it was 2015. I became a me guy. Yeah.
4 kids in, it's now about me.
So yeah, that's the irony that we start talking about teamwork, and you have to be focused on yourself, because it was evident pretty quick from a physical standpoint. I was bottom out of, what do we have, 12? I was probably bottom 3.
What happened to 4.6?
4.6 is good over 40 yards.
Yeah.
But you need me to run any further than that, and I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
So, I trained hard, but in hindsight, the wrong kind of training, and you turn up and you aren't, like I think the issue with a lot of coppers and things like that is you can be humble, you can be arrogant, but I think it's important that you're a realist. You have to know. Like where you get into trouble with anything is when you start kidding yourself and you're like, no, I'm doing really good at this. And you're like, oh, good Lord, no, you're not. And then on the flip side, you see people that are kicking dirt going, oh, I did this wrong. I didn't. No, man, you didn't. So I guess I've always sort of prided myself on being a realist. And that day one, I wasn't up to it, like from a physical point of view. And that's not a great feeling. We had some fit guys, even he's a good mate of mine, but, a guy who's, he'd be 8 years older than me, and he's smashing it. And you're like, God damn.
TRT.
Hey?
TRT.
Yeah. And you're like, God damn it, like the old dude, the old Greek guy's flogging me. What's going on here? So it's like, it's.
The PT sucks a lot, but yeah, if you're struggling, I guess it sucks a lot more than just going with the groove.
Yeah,
going with the pack.
The hard part with that is it's like if you're already struggling, by the time you get there and you've got to make a decision and you're out of breath, you're like, I don't deserve to be here. I'm the last one here. Everyone's like, mate, you've let us down. And now I've got to make a decision to get in there. And like they've already had 3 minutes.
Effect.
Yeah, they've had 3 mininutes to gain themselves because it's taken me that long to get there.
Yeah, and
you're always behind the 8 ball, yeah.
And I've heard, the chat with DC and as in Dan Caruana,
Dave
to his podcast
the
host.
Tai Chi
master.
Talking about that first smash session, and that was wild. Running out there and like, holy cow, we're carrying ropes, we're doing stuff in the water, we're doing all these holds, we're doing everything, and you're like, why am I struggling more than everyone else? And that's a shit feeling. Do
you reckon you actually were though, or do you reckon you just knew you were struggling and you didn't really?
In hindsight, we probably had maybe the same as any course. You got the guys that are going to excel. You're going to have that middle ground. You're going to have maybe 1 or 2 that are the heat seekers that really probably aren't good enough. And then I was probably just above that. But
good spot to be.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad spot, but it was just that holy cow. Like it hits you in the face like a sledgehammer, and you're like, am I ready for this?
We always used to have it's your day. Like you'd stuff something up in the morning and you just knew that was it for that bloke.
Yeah.
It's like they'd do something and the instructor would say something. It's like 7:30. We're like, oh, mate, it is your day today.
You're not going to turn it around now.
Yeah, like if it wasn't someone's day by 10 o'clock, everyone's paranoid.
Yeah.
But like if someone stuffed something up at 7:30, you're like, oh, yeah, thanks, man, appreciate it. Like,
yeah, and it sort of goes back to what I was saying before. You never want the spotlight on you, and the challenge of that course is like I'm the sort of dude who you can yell at me all you want. I don't care. Like yell, scream. I'm the guy that if you have a quiet whisper in my ear and you're like, Mac, you're letting everyone down here, man.
Yep.
Like that messes with me real bad. Like so that was always a challenge to overcome that, especially on the course.
So that part before where I said you were worried about letting other people down and you were like, nah, it's about me. Right, no, the theme continues.
Yeah,
You're still worried about letting people down?
100%.
So after you've been at Surf for a bit, obviously excelled. I saw you on Channel 7 at one point with your thing on there.
Have been on Channel 7.
Yep. Like not talking, obviously, just
No.
posing because you're one of the better looking blokes there.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, you also had the Adonis, so that was hard to compete with. But Negotiator,
Yes.
how long had you been in Surf before you went there?
So I was there for 12 months. So I arrived in November and then, of course, ran probably 12 months after that.
Is this another tap on the shoulder where they're like, you should do this?
No, this was an
Starting to feel like he's just giving stuff. Like, tap on the shoulder. Hey, you're a dad. Hey,
Had the
mate.
golden run.
Yeah. Hey, you need a job? Yeah, join the police.
I can cry about something if you want to cry.
Oh, no, we'll get to that.
So, sorry, the negotiator role's always interested me in that, what made you choose to be the person that would communicate directly? Like what drew you to apply for that role?
So I back at the unit, we had tasked operations. So I applied for that, doing warrants and everything like that. Got knocked back. So I was a little bit like, oh, okay, that sucks. And then the negotiator stuff came up and it was more, I don't mind the crash and bash kind of thing, but, I like the idea of communicating. I like the idea of, it was never a mind game or anything like that, but I like the idea of, a little bit more to it than just let's put a door in and hit someone with a taser or something like that. So I think that was what sort of drew me to it.
Bit more intellect, bit more thinking.
He says that, but he just didn't get into tops.
Yeah.
And if you didn't get neg, he would have been CFP. Or a team like task operations, you're part of a team. If you're doing this, like as a neg, you obviously work in with a team, but it's only two people. And a lot of the time, it's negs versus the outside guys because all the other guys want to kick the door in and go, and they're like, well, let's wrap this up. And you're literally there as basically the Jerry Maguire of the guy inside the house. And you're trying to get him out with the least amount of drama as possible. And it can be looked at as a prima donna from the other boys on the floor. So it's interesting when people put their hand up for
Don't
tops.
you call yourselves primary?
Primary and secondary?
Yeah.
No, you haven't even done like, oh, wow, look at you. Wow.
He's watched Kevin's face here.
That's an individual game. When you call yourself primary, that's an individual game.
But it's but it is. It's like you're putting your hand up to be like, I will take on the burden of everybody here. Whereas when you're in a team, you're like, I'm third in the stack. Cool, no dramas. My door's open door on the left. I'm going in. There's a dude with me. We're going in. As a negotiator, you literally it's you and him having a chat whilst everybody else is watching you.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty large thing to put your hand up for that.
In all honesty, it's probably one of the most specialist things policing can do worldwide and very unique. So what was that like getting into the training and the learning curve there?
Yeah, the training's quite intense. So, the course goes for quite a while. You start off with basic stuff and then you advance into like a full-blown 12, 16-hour kind of job towards the end. So it was massive, I guess, from an awareness point of view. You had to know, again, going back to what I was saying before, you have to know what you do good. You have to know what you're improving on and you have to be able to own it. My approach to negotiation, and it was interesting, so I was sort of thinking about it the other day, of my approach to negotiation was I need to be different from every other police member that this person's ever spoken to. Now, when I say that, it's unfair because the different to every other police officer that they've ever spoken to is a fictional character that I've developed in my mind of a copper who is telling them to piss off, telling them you like, which probably isn't fair.
Mate, one of my favourites we had was a bloke was like, come outside and get what's coming to you. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
You're definitely coming out for that.
Yeah, 100%.
So, sorry, you're saying that was a tactic to like
No,
challenge them?
that was we got to this bloke. He was in a garage, and one of the coppers had been like, "Come outside and get what's coming to you." And old mate's like, "Yeah, right."
So then
I think I will.
preparing to do.
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, and I was like, "Okay, that's put us behind the 8 ball."
Yeah.
So you've created a personality, like an avatar that's your negotiator. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, correct, mate. And it's. I mean, everyone's got different versions of themselves. Whether it's tactical guy, whether it's negotiator guy, me at home, me out with the boys, and all that sort of thing. And as we've probably touched on, like my natural personality is quite withdrawn, introvert. So to be front and center is something that I had to, you take a big breath and then you get into it kind of thing. So it was definitely wasn't fake, but it was a persona that I had to develop. And when I started as a neg, so come off course, again, all the better negotiators were massive personalities. Hollywood,
Move on.
No, but they were, and they were big personalities, like rock star kind of dudes. Walk in, own the room. That wasn't me. So it took me a little bit of time to develop my own style.
Did you have any dramas with the stuff they were doing on the course, like where they like go and make a conversation with a random person and all that sorts of things?
Yeah, hated that. Hated it with a passion.
Yeah.
So you had to approach someone in public? Or?
Yeah. Just go for a walk. I think we went into Melbourne, and it's just go and have chats to people. And I was like,
no thanks.
Yeah,
I'm good.
It's funny. So like on my course, for example, we had some large personalities as well before they were negotiators. But like we were there, and we'd literally be like, "Oh, you go and talk to old mate who's wearing a footy jersey and tell him his team's crap."
Yeah,
because we were like quite happy to go and talk to people because the bravado that we'd had with the boys on my course, we were like doing whatever, and then the instructors were like, "Well, go make it challenging then," and they just went and got coffees.
Yeah,
so
we were like,
I have to throw something in that we identified this morning that you possess the woo trait.
Oh god,
which is like a woo woo girl. He's happy to just go and talk to people and engage them. And
what's it actually stand for? Woo woo girl is not what it stands
it was woo woo.
for.
Yeah,
No, it was like
I'm maintaining that. Sorry,
winning others over is what it stands for.
But you also are a bit of a woo woo girl.
I don't know what that means. Is it like a go-go dancer or like what is?
So yeah, you had to go and talk to people on the street.
Fedora's going to be like, that was zero value.
Did that just come down to like some self-discipline of having to own those tasks, or did you try and duck that stuff if you could, or how did you persist through that?
100% try to duck it.
Yeah.
But that makes it obvious though.
Yeah.
Usually people are going to go, righto, he doesn't like that.
Yeah.
So how did you get through the first thing that you've been challenged with in like 12 years, including 4 kids, national emergencies? Obviously talking to someone in public, obviously a massive deal.
Yeah, and mate, it was more just that sidle up, Seinfeld, the sidler, for anyone that watches Seinfeld. But, you just sort of move up, hey man, do you know where this is? Or, just try and do normal kind of stuff. But that was hard. That's
so you just walked up and did mate, do you have the time when you had to watch on your thing? And they're like,
yeah, pretty much.
Righto, mate, you try and pick me up.
Yeah, exactly. I got walked away with 3 phone numbers and a pass on the thing. But, that we ended up like towards the end, like as part of the directing staff of the negotiator course, we ended up bumping that because that's not what negotiating is. It's not being sneaky. It's not trying to do stuff. I get it from the point of view of trying to put yourself outside of your comfort zone. That's not what negotiating is. So being able to talk to somebody in there, like you are going to be. It's not a keynote speaker, but it is public speaking. Like you're there on a megaphone. Everybody in the street can hear it. A lot of times there's crowds, there's everything, and everyone can hear what you're saying, especially when old mate's pretending he can't hear you and he's got music playing, so you've got to shout it and do whatever. So it's like I get where they're going. It's a pretty easy toe in the water to go up and have a conversation with a stranger. Yeah, and I guess that sort of comes back to me, how I'm built as a person. Like I'm much more comfortable speaking in front of however many people you want to put me in front of rather than those.
So more the better? Is like a one-on-one thing's more intimidating
100%.
than 100, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess in a way that's what made the negotiation a little bit easier because it was a performance in a way.
Yeah.
Because people are watching, people are listening and, we go back to worrying about what people think and that sort of thing. As a neg, you couldn't. That went out the window for me pretty quick because you'd say stuff or you'd be doing whatever, talking about feelings and talking about all this sort of thing where.
Why are you grinning?
As you're smirking now.
You started that.
and the boys are going to take the piss out of you when you get back.
Yeah.
But fuck it, that's my job. So that worrying about and I guess it probably does come back to, as the title says on the big banner that you've got hanging up here in the studio, the Imposter Podcast is when I finally felt comfortable, especially inside CERT, that's when I didn't care anymore. Because I had that confidence, I had the runs on the board to, it didn't bother me.
Was there was there a specific time or did you just wake up one day and you were like, all right, this is what I do?
No, mate. So and again, I had some shockers where.
Because if you want me to move on, we'll move on. But like you've lost people.
Yep.
And then like how does that rock your confidence?
So I suppose like doing a job as a negotiator, that's always a possible outcome, and that's something that you have to take into an account. And lost. I guess I was at one where we lost one. The second one was as a primary negotiator, and you literally watch.
So the first one you were secondary.
First one was a weird one because it went. I was
sorry, just for people at home. Your primary negotiator is the person who's generally doing the contact at the start and they're speaking to them, and the secondary is the person who gives you backup and they're listening to the radio and doing that sort of stuff.
Looking out for you and that sort of thing. And I guess the second one where, if you're happy, we can talk about it. If you're not,
I am. It's your
one of your sound effects. But
that was probably no. Was that no good? I didn't want that. Oh, is that?
No, it's not great either.
All right, I'll move on.
So job comes through.
I was looking so nervous. It's
going to say you've lightened the mood, but it doesn't really.
It's now the Black Humour Podcast, and the ratings changed.
But the second one, I guess I lost was a bit of a prolonged, not prolonged, but it was more personal. So talking to a dude on a balcony, speaking to him for 19 minutes, and then he goes, and it's like, holy cow!
Say 19 or 90?
19.
Yeah.
So it was pretty short and sharp. But you look back on it and you're like, what could I change? What could I do different? And one of the big things that we talk about as negotiators is someone in absolute crisis. What I'm trying to do is get your brain back online. So it's not a medical term. I think that the proper way of saying it is we want to decrease emotionality and increase rationality, which sounds cool in a textbook, but for us, let's get that brain back online. Yeah. And I was talking to him and his brain was never offline. So I still remember it because we ended up doing, a fair bit of training around it because it was rare that this actually happens. So, we had the body-worn camera footage and, I was talking to him about, mate, if you go, as soon as you go, you're going to regret it forever. Oh, as long as you can kind of thing. And he goes,
I think most people that have jumped have said at the instant they let go of the bridge, they changed their mind.
100%, mate. And, I remember mentioning, because at the time it wasn't that long after Magic Door went off the Balti Bridge and, reading his reports, and he was like, as soon as I jumped, I wish I hadn't. And I said that to him and I was like, look, man, if you go, there's no coming back from it. And I still remember the words, and he was like, you know what, Mark, it's going to be 5 seconds of terror for an eternity of peace. And I was like, fuck, like I'm in some trouble here. So I'm trying every trick I can in the book to not trick every strategy. I'm trying my best. And then he goes and you're like, holy shit, like he went. And yeah, it was.
Did you get the vibe that you weren't winning early on?
It was mostly those sorts of things, mate. So when he was very rational, and I look back on it where, you look back and you go, man, what made him different to everyone else that didn't go? And it was that rationality that he had. And just, with his positioning and things like that, there's no option to grab him. It's not like the movies where, like, what is that, Stallone?
Well, it also doesn't, like, physics-wise, it's not a safe option to do.
100%, mate. And,
regardless of whether, if you weigh 110 kilo and old mate weighs 60 and he's falling, he now weighs, 200.
Yeah. And so I guess that's one thing, because you go to enough jobs and you think about what would I do if he goes, and you see enough people in that situation where you're like, I wonder what this would look like. So it was quite a surreal moment of like, I still remember, and it's hard to explain, but it's just that build up of just like, fuck, like I can't believe he actually went over. And then you start with the post incident stuff that starts going pretty quick, and before you know it, it's interesting from a welfare kind of, like, our guys were great. My inspector, my senior sergeant, they were on scene, they were knowledgeable, they were fantastic. But following any critical incident, it's surprising the things that get you.
Like when you get drug tested, like you're a crook, and all this
yeah.
sorts of
So
stuff.
you wean in the thing, and I still remember the psychs coming in, and it was awkward, man. Like the psychs came in, and they were only probably in their 30s, and they walk into a room of tactical operators that were in there, and they were like, hey guys, really bad night. And I found myself having to modify my behaviour because I felt so awkward for these poor psychs that had just walked in. And you're like, this is backwards land, man. Like this isn't how it's supposed to be. And then
I've had people talk about how they've gone to psychs and then have psychs cry and they can't see you again.
Yeah.
That's not ideal.
And it was just interesting. And you wake up the next day and there's like 37 messages on your phone, and that's awesome because you want that support. But then I start to get a little bit stressed about, oh man, I've got to make sure I get back to all these people. And I've got 4 phone calls, and I hate talking on the phone at the best of times. And it's like, far out, I've got to try and make up an excuse.
Well, I couldn't even get a lift in and out of the city with you because it was his podcast time.
Yeah, that's my time. So
Like, legitimately, we'd drive in separately on the same shift because he was listening to podcasts on the way home.
yes.
Been waiting for this opportunity.
Yeah. You want to put this on record? It's not like we live 300 metres away from each other. But yeah, mate, look, and like, how do you deal with it? It's negotiation or policing, or like, you have to find that happy medium between caring too much and not caring at all. And we've all seen it probably, compassion fatigue starts to creep in, with some people. That's not good. But if you care too much, then, that's not good either. So
did it make you doubt your ability to do the job?
It was ironic, mate. And I guess you question it, right? So you think about, holy cow, like, did I do okay? But I guess that was one time where the support of my peers, support of my mentors really helped me. And, we talk about teamwork and things like that. And, just Murphy's Law, it felt like every job after that was a job at height. And you're like, oh man, another job at height. But, the guys looked after me and they're like, oh, it's all right, Mac, we'll take this one. But you have those doubts where, like, maybe there was one thing I could have said that got him down. Like, I still remember, he's talking about, the old suicide playlist and the music that he's listening to. And you're like, oh, shit. And would it have made a difference? No. But could I have possibly come up with something about, it sounds like a little bit weird, like, yeah, that's a sad song, but, what about that Venga Boys hit, The Venga Bus is Coming? That's really uplifting. You know what I mean? Like,
that would have done me in.
Yeah.
Try to circuit break the music or something.
Yeah, and
Barbie Girl, you're like, this is the last thing you're going to listen to, mate.
Yeah, this is a cracking song.
It is funny, the random stuff that will come in your head where you're like, well, he's going. There's literally no point me holding anything back at the moment.
Yeah.
Like we had one guy that was about to jump, and the bloke that I was on with, who's beautiful, he just yelled at him. Like, the guy went to run towards the edge. He's like, "Oi, stop!" And old mate stopped because he was like, "Fuck, what's that about?" And I just looked at him, and he's like, "Fuck, it worked." Like, that was literally all he came. I would have just frozen, and gone, "Oh, this is me done. I'll be talking to the psych for the next 5 years."
Yeah.
I think that's worked with some active shooters as well, where it's like a paternal thing where you yell out stop, and it's like your parents when they're telling you to stop a video game. It sort of circuit breaks whatever action you were doing if it's in that deep voice and authoritative.
But it was amazing because I just got off course as well, and I was just like, "Oh, this is great. First job I've lost here. This will be me pensioned out. See you later." But but he stopped and did that. But like, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, and you like I say, you do look back and you're like, "Oh, could I have done this?" But I think the reason that I'm okay is that there's not much that I wish I had done. There's not much that I wish I had said, or it was just like, man, that sucks. You know what I mean? And
there's also the whole thing where he's made that decision, and realistically, you might have made him hang around another 19 minutes.
Yeah,
like he probably wanted to do it before you got there, and then you might have made it harder for him to make that decision. You know, like it's not like he would have talked to you and then gone, yeah, no, I'm definitely going
but
now.
mate, it's funny, and I'm always real sensitive about talking about it because, you know,
it's somebody's life.
Yeah, 100%. And like even to talking to people about it, because, you know, the day and age we're living in now, most people know someone's committed suicide, which sucks. So people have got their own individual, you know, thoughts on it and things like that. But for me, you know, one of the buzz phrases that I try to get out of people's vocabulary is that it's the coward's way out, you know, which is said quite a lot. But for the people that I've dealt with, they actually think they're doing people a favour.
Yeah.
Because they've become such a burden that their presence in these people's lives is only a negative. So that attitude of, you know, coward's way out and things like that, that's something that I definitely try to stay away from and try to adjust if I can.
It's, you know, I think negotiating could be one of the most unique jobs, and everybody's careers have different stresses and pressures. But, you know, I mean, I know you say you have a primary and a secondary, but really you're front and center with one of the most high consequence jobs there could ever be, especially when you spend the rest of your career in emergency services, you know, working in a team. So it's an incredible job.
Like you had,
thanks for sharing that story.
Like the first one you had, you were a secondary?
Yeah, mate. So that was a weird one. And I say it was weird because it went for like 16 hours. Right. So it was a Sunday. I was always due to do a double shift because we were short a negotiator in the afternoon. So I started off in the morning doing tactical stuff. We roll out there early. Afternoon, I turned into a negotiator. But at that time, it was a full-blown firearms job. So it was only that basic. There was no real direct communication. It was that long-range acoustic device that we used, the big speaker. It was just that over and over again. Special operations group turn up, they make entry, and find him deceased inside.
Right. So that even though that was 16 hours, you had less to do with it.
Correct.
So it was,
correct, mate. And it, you know,
like that's the thing when you've literally got the term primary. You're like, whatever goes wrong's on me.
Yeah, and you know, that's,
rightly or wrongly.
Yeah,
like you'll take that blame, but yeah.
And I guess negotiation's an interesting one because, you know, we say there's no ego in negotiation, but you come off the course, it's like, how many wins you got? And all of a sudden you have a couple of losses and we stop counting, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, the thing is I never lost anyone, so.
But, it's a different.
Al's looking at me like, wow,
there's a little bit of black humour in there, but I'll say, you know, in your defence is that it just actually shows how much all the negotiators care because, you know, you have to be analytical and reflective about it to grow and to improve in that skill set. But
it was funny, mate. So after that one off the balcony, like I've always, you know, been a big believer, I guess, or, you know, or you always hear about the bucket theory, right? Like how full's your bucket? And it's like, is this one? And I still remember, you know, you go through a few different jobs and you get home and you're sitting there going, oh, I wonder if this is a job. Like, I wonder what it's going to feel like to completely, you know, spill over and things like that.
Sometimes I wonder if the bucket theory sets you up for failure.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting there going...
So you mean your bucket you're talking about now?
Yeah. So, you know, you get home and you're like, man, that was a pretty full-on job. I wonder if this is going to be the one that tips me over. And you're sort of sitting there, you know, no, I still feel okay. And
do you get that weird feeling as well when you... Because I used to get that where I'd say some not great stuff or like, you know, you'd have a job that didn't go great and then you'd come back and you'd be like, should I be more upset? Yeah. Should I be, or am I now numb? It's like, which side am I on? Am I a concern because my bucket's almost full and I don't know it yet? Or am I numb and I don't care anymore? In which case, am I no longer, should I be in this job? Yeah. Or am I in a bit better position because I'm quite happy to be abused by people over and over and over again and still be trying to do the best for them?
Yeah. And
it's a weird vibe to be in.
Yeah. So with that one, after the job, you know, you get sent home, you know, I get home, it's probably about 7 and I'm sitting on the couch going, man, that was I was full on. Like nothing like that's ever happened. I wonder how this is going to affect me. And I was sitting there going, and I'm sort of thinking like, no, this isn't affecting me. You know, I wonder why this isn't affecting me.
This is like literally hours after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting on the couch, man, for about 3 hours going.
Is it Glenn Gilmartin? Gilmartin's magic couch that he talks about?
Kevin Gilmartin.
Kevin Gilmartin.
Yeah.
The magic chair.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting on the couch for 3 hours thinking, I wonder how this is going to affect me.
So it was affecting you?
Yeah. 100%.
Literally.
And then 3
So
hours.
after 36 hours of sitting in the chair, I was like, no, I reckon I'm right.
Yeah. And then
Being
and then
reflective, part of negotiation.
after 3 hours, you're like, hang on a minute, maybe this is how it's affecting me. So yeah, it's interesting.
So was that the end of you negotiating, or did you do it for another couple of years after that?
Going for another couple of years, and then ended up leaving the job. Like I said, I think if I had have had regrets, if I had have done something dramatic, if I had have done the other guys, you haven't got the balls to jump or anything like that, like then obviously then you're gonna be like, oh shit,
People have been talking down here. They're saying, well, you won't do it.
Yeah.
I reckon you can.
He's flying.
Yeah. So
Wow.
Bit inappropriate.
So yeah, I had no regrets. So yeah, get straight back into it, mate, and get after it.
Do you find that? Because I often wonder when they send you home and you get 2 days leave.
Yep.
Yeah. Like they send you home to sit there and think about it for 2 days straight.
They call that rumination.
But see, and again, it was so you're dealing with the incident, and that's okay. All the messages come through, that's okay. And then, so I think it was a Thursday, gave me Friday, Saturday off, go back to work on the Monday. And they're like, yeah, just to let you know, they'll come in and do your statement. They'll do it between 8 and 4. And I was like, nah, I ain't sitting around for 8 hours waiting for you to be ready to come and take my statement. So I was like, I'll do it at 10. If you're not there, I'm leaving. So little things on the periphery, when you're dealing with something like that, and they're not major things.
So that's good that you were assertive enough to make that call, because other people would sit there. Like after Burke Street, there was people sitting around for so long.
Yeah, and even
on their own with no one waiting to make a statement.
Separated deliberately from everybody else. And
and that's where our managers were good.
Spiral. Anyway.
I was going to say that's where our managers were good on the night. Because,
okay, yep.
My guys came in and they were like, all right, people came in to take statements, and they were like, no, our guys aren't doing it. They don't want to do it. And you could see they're a little bit like, wait, you go with you.
Yeah, but we have a process to follow. And you're like, this process will be there tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. So again, I couldn't be more thankful of our guys, looking out for us and that sort of thing. It was awesome.
On that high note, do you want to have a timeout?
yes. That's
Right, I'm going to chuck some music on that. We'll come back. You can get another dip.
Do it.
Do whatever you want to do. I'll speak to our lawyer about all the inappropriate things we've said, and the humour that I tried to go with was obviously inappropriate. Like the movie back things. But here's our happy music. What a terrible way to finish a podcast.